The shackles are off, the NDA is over, and now there is nothing from preventing me from telling you the truth about how stupid Batman and Superman's first meeting is in the Arkham universe. What is happening, Internet? Welcome back to the One Channel, and I'm going to blow the lid off one of the laziest writings that I have ever seen in a video game. And that is compiling all of the psychological and sacrificial events of Arkham Knight into a how it should have ended episode. Once, Rocksteady had talented writers. Today, they have Sweet Baby Incorporated, and it shows. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to have to get into some context, because all of us had a different idea of how Superman and Batman's first meeting would go. So if you're a fan of Batman the Animated Series, you know that Batman was a solo character working with human characters. He did not operate with metahumans or superhumans until his first meeting with Superman, and he was on a case. So his meeting with Superman actually was very fulfilling, and it was interesting because they combined both characters' elements into one story that worked. Batman was investigating the events of stolen kryptonite, or a jade thing, and it led him to Metropolis, where the Joker was. They had their first meeting, Batman saved Superman, and then eventually they became work friends. They weren't really super friends until a huge cataclysmic event where the White Martians came to Earth and the Justice League had to be formed. That made sense, and it also brought Batman from the animated series all the way into the Justice League cartoon. It was a, very easy explanation, and it made sense based on how Batman was changing and incorporating more, superhuman elements into his show, especially the 4th season. A lot of us had this, I wouldn't say grand idea of how the Justice League would form. It would be pretty typical. You would think it would be some type of major Earth-wide event that had to include 6 superpowered people and Batman to save the world. That would make sense, right? Yeah, no, it doesn't really happen like that. They want to form to basically do good in the world and combat evil and all that other stuff. So essentially, it's like a Super Friends thing. It's like a 1970s or even like... No, you know what? I'm going to say Lego Batman actually handled it better too. Lego Batman 2 handled the whole Justice League thing better, and they were already established anyway, and Batman was just kind of a part-timer. But that's besides the point. So, in Arkham Knight, and in the Arkham universe, we have known that Superman has existed for some time. Batman is aware of him. There's no mention of it, obviously, but you can see that there are posters throughout Arkham Knight saying, go to Metropolis, and you can see Superman flying. Now, that's not just an Easter egg at, hinting at a Superman game was coming, which, as we know, never happened, right? But it was showing that Metropolis existed in this universe, and Batman makes mention of Metropolis several times. In fact, there are characters from Metropolis that actually interact with Batman throughout the Arkham games. But don't take my word for it. Give this a listen.
Mr. Wayne, Lex Luthor calling. Apologies for going via your direct line, but I grow tired of these games. LexCorp has made a very generous offer for Wayne Tech's Applied Sciences division, yet your persistent unavailability begins to look less like a busy schedule and more like deliberately antagonistic behavior. Come now, meet with me. I'm sure we can come to an agreement. A man of your refined taste doesn't need an Applied Sciences division after all. He needs another $1 billion.
So that right there, aside from the Lex building in Arkham Knight, establishes that Superman's villain is actually present in the world of the Arkham universe, which they were probably hinting at a bigger, more shared universe, but of course that never happened, did it? We also have elements of thugs talking about Superman throughout both Arkham Knight and Arkham City, but I can't really get you those audio clips because that would be way too much work and I'm lazy. So you just have to use your imagination. But more or less, they don't want to deal with Metropolis because Metropolis is protected by a Superman. So Superman has been around since the events of Arkham City. That would probably be his start date. Now, I don't know if the Suicide Squad is actually going to go into detail about how Superman first came to Earth, but it doesn't matter. What we're discussing is the stupid first appearance between the world's finest, Batman and Superman, and how they met. So, I always reasoned, common sense, that Superman, the reason why, because we know he was established, and he's been around, The reason why he doesn't help Batman during the time period of his identity being exposed, for one, they weren't close, because there's no mention of the Justice League at all. It never happened in Batman's almost 20 years in, activity, which I completely reject. Arkham Origins saying that it's only been 10 years since the events of, before the events of Arkham Asylum. That was basically, they were trying to combine a much longer canon and shift it to the New 52. Both the Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight game follow the New 52 formula, and Arkham Asylum and Arkham City was written during the time of the pre-52, so a longer career-driven Batman, and then they New 52ified it, and they made it stupid, which you can tell, because they tried to condense too many things, and basically, instead of a very nice sweater, you had a sweater that had like 4 arms and holes in it. So it wasn't a human sweater anymore. It was still a sweater, like the Arkham canon, but now the sweater was that of a mutant. So you would have to have, like, multiple arms in order to wear it. Basically, you're Goro for the Arkham canon. Okay. So anyway, back to my initial point. So my reasoning, and a lot of other people's, when we asked Rocksteady about where Superman was, because we did ask Rocksteady several years after the events of Arkham Knight, because we thought, we could freely talk about it. And I can tell you what former Rocksteady people told me about why Superman didn't help Batman. And their reasoning was, he wasn't around. And I was like, wait a second, what do you mean he wasn't around? They're just like, well, he just wasn't there. It's like, was he off-world? Was he dealing with some interplanetary threat? You've already established him, so where was he? And they're just like, he wasn't around. We wanted this to be a Batman-centered thing, and just think of the Justice League as kind of like Easter eggs. Like, we had no plan to use them. We didn't even know if we were building up to something bigger. It was just kind of like, we explained it that Superman just wasn't around. We wanted everything to be focused on Batman, because they're like, think about it. If they had a relationship, Superman would have shown up and stopped Scarecrow from unmasking Batman. That person is no longer at Rocksteady, but you can understand that the questioning that I've had over the years, and remember that I am an Arkham OG. Arkham Video, aka AV, only beat me by 1 month. And I'm just going to make this argument. I've actually made more Arkham content and lore-based stuff than he has. But while he's very loose with accepting certain lore elements and, he just enjoys the gameplay, I'm kind of like an Arkham historian. So when certain things don't add up, I kind of lose it because I'm a stickler for everything to be connected, like A to B to C, just like you're writing out a clear timeline, right? So with the Arkham timeline, which I hate about it, is basically it goes from like A, C, D, B, E, F. It's not like a clear, concise, like this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And all those comic books that you have, they're non-canon. They don't make any sense. Just a clear indication of that. In the Arkham Knight game, the meeting between Scarecrow and all the villains, in the comic books it includes Bane. Bane basically says, I'm out, I'm not doing this, this is stupid, I can kill Batman by myself. And Scarecrow's not cool with that because he wants all the villains to work together, and the Arkham Knight kills Bane. Now, in the meetup of all the villains that happens in the Arkham Knight game, Bane is not present because Bane is in Santa Prisca. But they try to cleverly fool you into thinking that the Arkham Knight comics are actually canon, and all those things that happened prior to the game was your lead up to the game, and none of it ever happened. At all. There was no mass murders, there was no death of Bane, there was no investigation about Bane's death, there was no early meeting of the Arkham Knight. All that stuff doesn't exist, so you have to throw it in the trash. Because Rocksteady's game is completely different in comparison. That's how you know. So when all these theorists and lore people try to connect the comics, you're fooling yourselves because basically what you do is you're cherry-picking events to put into your Arkham Timeline videos because they're all non-canon. Assault on Arkham is non-canon. Comic books, non-canon. There are aspects of Arkham Origins and Blackgate that you can use, but for the most part, everything else doesn't hold water when it comes to the grander story. So again, because I'm an Arkham historian, which I like that better than being called an Arkham grandfather, which many people refer that to me as like the OG Arkham granddaddy or whatever. If anything, I'm the cool uncle, but I would prefer to just be kind of like the historian of the group because I like to study lore and I like to figure out how all this works in the grand scheme of things. So with Rocksteady's reasoning that Superman just wasn't around, it always bothered me because, you know, if you've already established the character, to me, you have to explain why they weren't around. We never got that because, again, it was a Batman story. I get that. Then, all these years later, 8 years later, we finally have a game about the Justice League, but the reason why fans are upset is because we never got that really big game where the Justice League was formed. We get a game where we can kill the Justice League, but we don't get a game that fans have been asking for so long. And basically we get a cash grab Suicide Squad game because at the time the Suicide Squad was popping in the theaters and the Justice League was not. Thank you, Joss Whedon. But that's besides the point. That's a video for another day. So, we have all these great things that could have happened with Superman and Batman's first introduction, but we don't get that. So, let's get into the Nightfall Protocol ending and why fans are angry. It's actually very simple why people are upset. Is because it takes all that great writing, all that great character development, all the sacrifice, all the pain, blood, sweat, and tears that Batman went through in Arkham Knight, and it flushes it down the toilet. While I've never criticized the game's gameplay, I am going to obliterate the story of this game for years to come, because I have so much to work with because Sweet Baby Incorporated are terrible writers. Like, to say that it's amateur hour is being polite. No, I'm not a nice guy, deal with it. I don't care. Arkham Knight did something very drastic. Just like there was a climactic finale to Arkham City where the Joker died, and the impact that had on the greater Arkham universe was very apparent. Arkham Knight ended in a way that felt kind of fulfilling, but also sad, but also it showed that the people of Gotham were still protected in a way. But Batman had to become something else to defend Gotham. And also he had to say goodbye to his allies, and this was really him saying goodbye. Let's look back at what Batman said to Nightwing.
So, here's the part where you tell me off.
I'm proud of you, Dick.
Are you feeling okay?
This is the end. This is the last time we meet.
Don't talk like that. Alright, this won't stop you. Nothing stops you.
Keep Bloodhaven safe. Promise me.
It's okay, Bruce. I get it. You just don't want me hanging around, stealing the limelight.
Dick.
I won't let you down.
What you can see from this interaction between Batman and his son is that Batman knew that in order to protect Gotham, that the Batman can't do it anymore. He's proud of Dick for everything that he's accomplished, and he's saying goodbye to his son. He knows that Dick is a capable hero, and he can carry on the legacy to some extent. Maybe Nightwing knows that he's never going to see him again. I don't know. We never really get any context to it. In the Nightwing DLC, when he's talking to Lucius, he kind of mentions how, you know, everything feels different with Bruce being gone. Doesn't know where he is. Lucius thinks whatever. You know, they really focus on kind of just dealing with the Penguin on the GCPD rooftop. And it would have been nice to get like a trickle of more information from that, but we never did. And then the big one. Selina is in love with Batman. In fact, if we were to post the audio tapes from the Riddler, you know, Riddler even picks up on that there is some type of thing going on between the two of them, especially after the events of Arkham City. I mean, Selina did save Batman from death. She went back during the Protocol 10 event, and she rescued him. So, I mean, they were hinting at that romance between the Bat and Cat well before DC made them canon and then, you know, broke up their marriage and all that other nonsense. But take a watch at this scene, and you'll see the significance of it.
Play nice.
You're not playing at all.
No, I'm not. Not anymore.
And what's that supposed to mean?
It means this is the end, Selina. It means we can't. I can't.
I will see you again, right?
No one will. Gotham needs something more, something worse to defend her. She needs a new myth. A legend more powerful than I can be right now. A legend that can only rise from the ashes of the Batman.
Some things you can't do alone, Bruce.
Now, I don't want to tread old ground too much, but basically Batman here is telling the audience the end game. Like, that right there, Gotham needs somebody worse than me to defend her. He realizes that Batman cannot be a character that is going to be out in the open. When his identity is exposed by the Scarecrow at the end of the game, no one is afraid of him anymore. The mystique, the mystery, Everything about Batman, like, just ruins it for not only Gotham City, who tries to get him arrested, and, you know, rightly so, he committed so many crimes and atrocities over his 20-year period, and now they have a face to the name. Like, they can literally legally hold Batman accountable for everything he's ever done. And Batman is not a hero, he is a villain, in a sense. He's a villain who fights other villains, basically. So you can see right there where he talks about, I need to become something worse. So already he knows that he's going to activate his Nightfall Protocol, and everything's going to change. He also uses Scarecrow, who poisons him, in order to basically completely destroy the Joker persona that is gaining a mental foothold on his mind. And Batman's greatest fear is actually turning into the Joker. That's the whole premise of the game, is Joker is actually gaining control of not only Batman's body, but also his mind, and he would be a force of nature. Like, no one would be able to stop him. You know, he would kill everybody. And that's Batman's greatest fear, is becoming a villain. Like, the hero's journey lives long enough to see himself become a villain. That's a problem for him. And, you know, they basically completely dismiss this with Brainiac, which, I'm just gonna say this now because I would know this, but did you know that the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is basically recycling Lego Batman 3 to the T? The Justice League, for the most part, for most of the game, is actually possessed by Brainiac. All of them are. And, eventually they break free of their mind control, and they work with the villains to stop Brainiac. Of course, they don't die in it. It's kind of, this is an R-rated version of it, but it's the same thing. Like, it would have been cool if they would have done an adaptation of the Tower of Babel, or, you know, maybe like the White Martian take over the Earth or something would make more sense. But I mean, essentially you go around blasting robots, which, again, is very Lego Batman-ish. I'm just saying, you know, Sweet Baby Incorporated obviously grew up playing the Lego game. Lego Batman plot aside, I just ruined the game for you, didn't I? Well, I mean, you know, it is what it is. That gripping fear that Batman had with the Joker taking over his mind, and this triumph of defeating the Joker and then going off on his own, like basically being like, you know, I get to end Batman on my own terms. We had a good run. I'm putting down the mask. Batman is no more. And then for several months, you know, the Bat family kind of works and protects Gotham, and then we never hear from them again. We don't know what happens. Even Robin is kind of like, oh, I really need to step it up, and he tries to interrogate people. Nobody is really afraid of Robin. Like, the only way Robin could have actually intimidated people is by becoming a new Batman. Like, people wouldn't know it's Bruce Wayne, and he could kind of start over again, but he's adamant about being the Bald Wonder. It doesn't make any sense. And, I mean, even Two-Face is kind of rimming Robin in the DLC, which I just covered recently again. And he's saying, like, you can't really do this without Batman because you don't have that it factor. Like, you're just Robin. And if I was Robin, it'd be like, you know what, you're right. It's time to retire Robin, and it would make sense for Tim, in this universe, to become Batman. After the events of Arkham Knight, and all that stuff is done, we get glimpses of Batman essentially confirming that my Nightfall Protocol ending video is canon. He saw what Scarecrow was doing with fear, and Batman wanted to become an agent of fear. He became a wraith, a ghost, if you will, and was pretty much just a lingering thought and that fear in the back of criminals' minds. And it almost goes back to that great statement that Batman had with Alfred in Arkham Origins.
The only thing between the innocent and the predator. No, not maybe. I am. When the mugger or the thief stops to think twice, that is fear. That is what I am. That is why they hired assassins, because I am the reason the criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. So no, Alfred, I am not in over my head. Tonight will not be my head, but it will be theirs.
Like, literally, Batman is this personified now, okay? So you can see, all of this was fantastic writing, right? Like, this is why people loved the Arkham story. It was very well done. It wasn't just a game thrown together like Gotham Knights and their weird political agenda crap. It was actually a well-constructed story that had a beginning, middle, and an end. Yes, there are problems with the canon when you try to do prequel games and messily try to connect it to stuff that was before, but if you just look at the games like Asylum, City, and Night, it's pretty concise. But again, you have to remember that these companies don't pay attention to continuity. They just don't. They're there to make a cool game, great gameplay, and the story is always secondary. When the story was originally by Paul Dini, the story was peak. When the story took over by Sefton Hill at the climax of Arkham City and Harley Quinn's revenge, and all of Arkham Knight, then you can see that he tried to incorporate story beats from Paul Dini, but he wasn't successful. I would say he did a great job, more or less, because, I mean, that Nightfall ending was, you know, pretty great. But for the most part, you know, it wasn't the same high standard of writing that a DC comic author would have. And that's just facts. So, this all leads to my original argument that Batman meeting Superman is handled so amateurish that it's sad. So we've already established in this video the emotional, gripping thing that Batman had to deal with, his sacrifice of becoming like this ghost in Gotham, nothing more than a whisper, his allies doing their thing, and Batman being completely, you know, cut off from everyone that he ever loved. That was a sacrifice. What Rocksteady has done in the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game is they've completely retconned that sacrifice. So, we don't know all the context, because again, this is according to Jack Ryder. So Jack Ryder likes to embellish things, so it could be a parody in itself. And at the time of this video, there is no context to how Batman really meets Superman. It's literally just a sentence. But let me illustrate this as best I can. So let's say Batman has been a whisper, a ghost in Gotham for some time. Bruce Wayne is still wanted by the US government for all the atrocities Batman has committed in the Arkham universe over his entire career. Whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, doesn't matter. He is a wanted criminal. The criminals of Gotham are kind of running scared from this, they think is the ghost of Batman haunting them. Now again, I don't know all the ins and outs, how the Justice League forms. It's not really clear, and I personally haven't had time to walk through the museum where this stuff is kind of like given to the player who cares about how it connects to the overall Arkham universe. And the only reason they're connecting it to Arkham, by the way, is for sales. There's no reason this game couldn't have been like an Elseworlds or a branched reality Arkham thing like Assault on Arkham. They did this because they're desperately trying to not make another Gotham Knights fiasco. Gotham Knights, if it was connected to Arkham, which probably would have ended up being just as bad as Blackgate, it probably would have sold more, because fans would have been like, okay, this is Arkham, this makes sense. Batman went boom at the end, and he still exploded, he just exploded differently. If they had Wayne Manor explode at the beginning of Gotham Knights, then it would all make sense. It'd be like, okay, yeah, it's connected. But when they didn't make that decision to connect it to the, you know, grander Arkham timeline, a lot of people didn't really care about the game, even if the gameplay was completely different. So this time around, Warner Brothers made a basically executive decision that this would continue the Arkham franchise, and they basically told the writer, somehow make it work. That's the impression that I got from this lazy storytelling, because it doesn't have the same talent that we are accustomed to for the other Arkham games. But anyway, so Batman and Superman's first meeting. It's dumb. In this universe, according to Jack Ryder, so allegedly, this is from his perspective, Batman is the ghost of Gotham, doing his thing. No one knows if Batman is alive or dead, and he's been gone for some time, but this ghost has been very apparent in Gotham. And crime is low, and things are looking up for Gotham. Superman is putting together the Justice League, and Superman goes to Gotham and finds the ghost. And that's all according to Jack Ryder. So it's just Batman and Superman meet, and he just asks him to join the Justice League, and Batman's just kind of like, okay. And that to me is just dumb. Because what you've done, you've taken a very, very serious story that spanned 4 games, and you reduce it to a brief episode of how it should have ended. It's almost like no different than Batman and Superman meeting up in a coffee shop and deciding to become best friends. It's funny, but also it's sad, because you would think that Superman would want Batman to join up with them to deal with like some type of threat that they can't handle on themselves, and they're willing to put the Justice League at jeopardy by having this wanted criminal in their midst. But none of that happens. There's no grand case that they're working together, because again, the world knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman and Batman is perceived dead, and there's no massive team up, there's no nothing. Superman swoops in, which he could have done during the events of Arkham Knight, and just takes Batman out of Gotham and says, will you be a part of my Justice League? Is this how you wanted the Arkham Batman to just kind of join the Justice League? I don't think it is. I think for many of you, you probably wanted Batman to come in and help the League and you know, risk being exposed by the public to deal with a greater threat. Instead, Superman swoops in, asks him to join the Justice League, and that's it. But that's not the only problem. As we continue to explore the Hall of Justice, Batman's personality completely flips. Now, the Batman that we're accustomed to that Kevin played with the Justice League is he was a part-time member. He was always kind of like, you know, I don't really want to do this full-time because Gotham is my priority. My war on crime is my priority. When things get too difficult and you need help, and you will, I will be there. That's the mentality that Batman had. This Batman is 100% a team player, almost like he's a completely different alternate universe or multiverse Batman. It just completely, for me, shatters the entirety of what this character stood for and his mysteriousness. Like, he's openly describing everything about his life to the general public. You know, I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman, and this is blah, 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 blah. You know, it's not how I would have done it. I don't think it's how any DC writer would have done it as well. And, you know, with Rocksteady's stupid rule about how they have to incorporate writers in-house or things like that, I mean, it's just sad. Had they not worked with Sweet Baby Incorporated, I don't think the game would be as cringy as it is. And again, for most people, they don't really care about the story anyway. For them, they're looking forward to a great gameplay experience, and mazel tov to you. Whatever, have fun. But for people that have actually been invested in the story and the characters for, you know, my gosh, almost 12 years now or longer, it's pretty pathetic and sad that this is what it's been reduced to. It's just basically kind of like a Jack Ryder retelling of events, because, you know, Jack Ryder likes to embellish things. And while it's funny and it's a nice Easter egg to have Jack Ryder and company back in this museum, and, you know, the tributes to Kevin and Arlene, it's just not what fans envisioned for how the Justice League was created. And this will not be the last time we discuss this. As more details come out and I've actually played the game, I will be doing a bigger deep dive into things, but this is just done for people who don't really understand why it's bad. I've given clear, concise, and well-constructed argument as to why it's stupid how Batman and Superman met, but I've basically made this video as easy to understand as possible. Alright, so anyway, guys and gals, that's going to do it for me. In the comment section below, do you agree with me that Superman's introduction into the Arkham universe in the first meeting with Batman is stupid? And if you don't agree with me, tell me why. Alright, people, thanks so much for watching. There will be another topic video in the future. Until we meet again, Gothamites, keep it locked here for more Batman news and video games, movie, TV, films, and occasionally, comics when they don't suck. Later.